Hey friend, Brannon Short here. Can I just be honest, forward, and direct right off the bat here? If you are in a season or have ever been in a season or ever are in a season in the future of hardship, adversity, and very little progress, that does not automatically just mean that you're somehow on the wrong path. I think often we think that it does. Often when we face these things, we think, well, if God was in this would be easier. Maybe it would be more seamless. Maybe these doors would just open up. And I think, truthfully, that may work in a prosperity gospel. I just don't think it works in the real gospel, in real life with real people. I often say that when we read Mark chapter 6, it's like reading a real life illustration of everyone's faith life. You see, Jesus has just fed 5,000 people in this beautiful miracle on a hillside, and then he tells the disciples to go on ahead of him in a boat to the other side of the lake. And you know what they do? They obey him immediately. They go and do exactly what he says. And by the end of the night, the passage says that they are straining at the oars of the boat in the middle of the night, surrounded by darkness with the wind against them. I just want to ask you, have you ever been in that season? Have you ever been in that season where you're trying to do your best to follow God? You're trying to be obedient. You're doing what you thought he said, and it feels like you're in the middle of the night in a little boat straining at the oars while wind is against you, making very little progress. That's where the disciples find themselves here. He saw them from a distance. In verse 50 in Mark 6, it says this, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." I love that moment. Jesus comes out to them, meets them in the lake in the midst of their circumstance. And that's such an important point. Jesus doesn't meet them outside of their reality. He meets them in the middle of their moment. But he says, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." I want you to be encouraged today. Whether you're on a mountain singing, surrounded by flowers in your life, or you're in the pit of a valley, mournful, stuff just doesn't make sense and isn't going the way that you dreamed it would. The greatest thing about a life with God, and I mean this genuinely, is that God is with us. Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. He goes out to them in their storm and says, "Take courage, it is I." The most powerful point maybe in this passage is not that he calms the storm, even though that's amazing and it's miraculous, and thank God that he does that at times in our lives. Maybe the greatest point, though, is that he's with them in the midst of their storm. He's with them in the midst of the wind being against them. Often we see who Jesus is most clearly in the moments that we never see coming. So be encouraged today, no matter where you're at and no matter what you're going through, that Jesus says that he's with us. And that alone, no matter where you're at, is a reason to take courage.